Hello and welcome to another episode. In today's episode, I am going to be explaining what is a constructor in JavaScript. But before we get started, if you are new to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so to get started in today's episode, I need you guys to have opened the same tools we have been using so far, which is the website that we have been coding so far with. I have also opened the code that we have been using. I'm going to clear everything up just to have everything in an empty sheet. And let me just go ahead and refresh here this website. Okay, so the console is now empty. Now, in addition to this, please open MDN. And I want you to type in on MDN in the search box the word constructor. Okay, and the third article, in fact, will only say constructor. That's the one that we're going to be taking a look at today. Okay, and another website that I need you guys to open is w3schools.com. And in this website, just jump into the JavaScript section. You're going to scroll all the way down to where it says JS objects, and you're going to click to where it says objects constructors right here. Okay, so the first thing that you need to know is what is a constructor, right? And first, we're going to read here in MDN what is a constructor, just so that you can have an idea, because MDN is the main source for JavaScript documentation, right? So let's read a little bit here. A constructor belongs to a particular class object that's instantiated. Now, the constructor initializes this object, and then it can provide access to its private information. So let me explain you in simple words what is a constructor. So we can say that a constructor in JavaScript is a function. That's the first thing that you need to know. A constructor is simply a function that is used to create and also to initialize objects. Now, if you're not familiar with the term initialize, just know that in JavaScript, the terms initialize it could refer to the process of setting up the initial state or the initial value of an object when it's first created. So let me give you an example. When you create a variable, and let's say that variable, it's called name, and the first name you give to that variable is John, then you're initializing that variable with the name of John, okay? And then if you change it, then you go ahead and you change the value of that variable, but the initialized value of the variable was John. So when I say that a constructor is a function that is used to create an initialized object, that's what I mean with the word initialize, okay? Now, constructors are used to create multiple instances of a particular type of object. Now, when I talk about instances, and that's another thing that I believe that you should know and you should be clear, in JavaScript, an instance refers to a specific occurrence or occurrences of an object that is created from a constructor function. Now, if this is too complicated for you, just think about an instance of something that you first create in the function, and then anything that it's created, any other object that is created out from that function will be considered an instance. But I will give you an example when we're coding, so don't worry too much about it for now. But just have the theory to know in what an instance is. Okay, so again, in JavaScript, a constructor is a function that is used to create and initialize objects. The constructors are used to create multiple instances of a particular type of object, and then each will have its own set of properties and methods. Okay, now you might be asking, why is it called a constructor if we can already create objects by its own? Well, in JavaScript, a constructor function is called a constructor because it's very simple. It's used to construct or create objects. Okay, simple as that. It's just simply used to construct or create objects. That's why it's called a constructor. And the term constructor, it comes from the idea that the constructor function obviously will be used to construct or to build new objects in a simple way. Now, we can think of this much like a construction worker. When a construction worker uses its blueprints and its tools to construct a building, is the same thing with the constructor function. We are going to use a blueprint that we are going to create, And we're going to use that and its tools to create new objects. Okay, so I hope that so far this is making sense to you, but I will explain with examples in just a moment. Now, for constructors, we're going to use two keywords in this tutorial. We're going to use the this keyword, which you have seen so far, and also we're going to use the new keyword, which we saw in our previous episode. I'm not going to get into the details of the new and the this keywords today, but just know that we're going to be using both of them. In later episodes, I will explain in depth, like what are those and where they come from and the fundamentals. Or in fact, if you want to research them by your own, more than welcome to do it. You're more than welcome to go ahead and research where the this keyword comes from and where the new keyword comes from. But for now, just know that in today's episode, we are going to use it. Okay, so enough about theory. Let's go into our code and let me show you an example in what I'm talking about. So let me open my code right here. Okay, and let me just open the same website that we have been coding with. Okay, there we go. So the first thing that we want to do, and this is just so that you are 100% clear in how this works, I am going to create an object in the usual way that we create an object. So let's create an object let's call the object, let's call it person1. Okay, and then I'm going to give some properties to this object. We're going to assign a name to this object, and let's just have the name be, name, and then the name of this object, let's just call him John. Okay, and then we're going to give John an age, and let's say that John is 30 years old. Okay, so we're going to console.log person1, which is this object that we just create right here. Okay, so that's the typical way to build an object, right? You just use the const keyword, then you create a variable, right? And this variable will have the data type of an object, which will have some information like the name of the person and then the age, the example that we are doing right now in here. And then if we console.log that person, let's go back to our website and let's hit refresh. Boom, here we have the object that we just created. The object has a name, John, and the age of John is 30 years old, right? So that's the typical way that you will create an object. Now, with constructors, you can build the constructor, which is a function, right? And then from there, you can create then instances of an object. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Building up a constructor is very simple. We just use the function keyword because a constructor is a function. And then we are going to give a name to this constructor. We're going to call this constructor a person. And then in parentheses, we're going to use the same properties that we use for the first object, which is the name and the age. Okay, simple as that. We're using name and age. And then in brackets, we're going to use, as I said before, the this keyword, which is going to refer to this function right now. And so we're going to say this name is going to equal to the name. And this name will equal to whatever name we add in this parentheses. And then this function age is going to equal to whatever age that we pass in this parentheses. Okay, so I hope this is making sense to you right now. But just know that whatever we pass in this parentheses is what it's going to be assigned. So right now, we can say that we have created a constructor. This function right here, it's called a constructor, right? Because we're constructing an object. In this is by using a function, right? So now, the next time that I want to create an object, I don't have to do this that I did in the first example. All I have to do, let me just go ahead and say, let's create another, I'll create another object. So the object will be person2. And then to this person2, we're going to create a new object. We're going to give it a value of new object. And we're going to say new, right? New. And then I want to use the person, new person, which is going to be this constructor, new person. So we're creating, remember, we're creating a person here, which is going to be person 2. And then we're giving the value to that person, which is going to be the constructor to create the object. So we're saying new person, which is this object right here. And then in parentheses, we simply pass in the name and age that we want this new person to have. Rather of doing this right here, we are just using the constructor in this case by using the keyword new. Okay, so we're creating a new object. So this person is going to be called Mary. And whoops, let's make sure that we tell the code that this is a string. So it's going to be Mary. And then the age of Mary will be 20. Okay, now if I console.log person 2, which is this one right here, right? I can go ahead and do that. Let me hit save, and going back to our code, let's hit refresh. So here, person 2, as you can see, it's Mary. It has the property age, and it has another property which is called name. Age will be 20, and then the name will be Mary. Okay? Because that's what we set in this function right here, which this function is called a constructor, right? So in this constructor function, we set up the properties for this object. And we have the properties, right? And we have the values for this object. And as you can see, I didn't have to do this entire thing right here. Rather, when I create a new object here, which I call it person 2, I only use the constructor itself and I just pass some information. So in other words, using constructors, it's an easier way to simply just go ahead and actually build objects. And we can even do the same thing for several persons. We can go ahead and copy this, and then let's say we're going to create 1, 2, 3, 4 persons more. So let's go ahead and give this a name of person 3. Whoops. Person 3. Then this one is going to be called person 4. Okay. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, let me just give some spaces here so it doesn't become confusing. Okay, let's see there. Okay, so here we have person 2. Then we're going to create person 3. Then this one is going to be called person 4. Okay, person 4. Then this one will be person 5. Let's use here person 5. And then this one will be called person 6. Person 6. Right? And then person number 3 is not going to be called Mary. This one, let's say it's Kevin. This other person, it's called Amy. This other person, it's called I don't know, let's say Katie. This other person, it's called let's say Alex. And then they have different ages. Let's say they have the age of 30. This one has 40. This one has 10. And this one has 70. Whatever, right? And then if I hit save, I'm console.login. As you can see, person 3, person 4, 5, and person 6 right here, right? So I should be able to get, we just created 1, 2, 3, 4 new objects just by using a constructor function, right? So I'm going to hit save now. Going back to our code, let's hit refresh. And boom, as you can see, we have all the persons or all the objects that we just created. We have the first one, which we created up here using the traditional method to create an object, which is person 1 named John, age 30. And then we have a whole bunch of new persons in here, person 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which the names are Mary, as you can see, then Kevin, then Amy, then Katie, and then Alex. All of them with different ages. And as you can see, all of them will have its own properties, their own properties, which are age and name. As you can see here, age and name, age and name, age and name. So I hope that a constructor is making sense to you now. because this will be a way, an easier way to build an object, right? So that's why we will use constructors in future examples and in future projects. So for now, I just want you to be 100% clear in what is a constructor, and that you know that, again, a constructor is simply a function that is going to help you to create new objects, okay, in a simple manner. So yes, that's what it's a constructor. Remember, if you want to read more about constructors, you can always jump into MDN, take a look at the constructor article. In fact, you can see here the syntax, which is what I just explained. You will have the function word, then you will set up a name, then you will open parentheses, and then the brackets, and then you will pass whatever arguments you want to it, and you can go ahead and create your own blueprint. In our case, this is our blueprint. We created pretty much an object with two properties, which are called name and age. And then every time that we create a new object, all we have to do is just go ahead and pass in the new values that we want for it. And remember, always using the new keyword when we're creating new objects using the constructor function, okay? And another article that will be really great if you want to check it out is W3 Schools. If you go to the object constructor article there, you will see here some other examples for constructors. And you can read a little bit more about the this keyword if you want to know a little bit more about that. You can read it in here. It has a whole bunch of information about it. I will recommend you always use MDN, since this is the main source, the main documentation where JavaScript is explained, right? But if you want to go ahead and check out W3 Schools and see what this is as well, it'll be really helpful. W3 Schools will give you some examples that will make everything a little bit more clear, right? Okay, so that was it for this episode, everybody. I hope that you liked it. I hope that now you understand what is a constructor in JavaScript, and I hope that you practice. Remember to practice. Practice is very important, okay? Now, if you have liked this video so far, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And remember that you can always ask Lixi. Bye, everyone, and see you again in the next episode.